Yo, what's poppin' everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Zach Lesage here. We're going to be covering over the top 10 best decks. You want to know what makes this week more special than last week? Well, we have Pittsburgh Regionals, the first major event of the 2023 to 2024 season, going on in just a couple days. So, the positioning of this list really is going to be how these decks are doing in the metagame and how I expect them to do well at Pittsburgh Regionals. So number one would likely be one of the best choices to play at Pittsburgh Regionals. All of these decks are fantastic. I mean, we're in a really diverse metagame where a lot of decks have a lot of opportunities. A little rock, paper, scissors action, and what I mean by that is some decks win against other decks, some decks do not win against other decks. So if I'm playing a Charizard deck, pretty good chance I win against Mew. If I'm playing an Tina deck, pretty good chance I do well against Turbo, Lost Zone Box, etc., etc. So that being said, keep that in mind when going through this list. If you're looking for any of the cards in these videos or any of the things, be sure to check out our sponsors at Atlas Collectibles and Deck Out Gaming and PTCGL Store. Whether you're trying to get the cards online, in real life, all of the discount codes are available in the description below. All of the decks are available in the pinned comment for this video, so stay tuned for that. If it's not updated before this weekend, I'll likely have it updated in the next couple days. That being said, let's jump into this video. Like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think the top 10 best decks are. Let's get it. Be sure to check out all of the sponsors of the Shuffle Squad, whether you're looking for graded cards, you're looking for singles, sealed. We have all affiliate codes with all of our great sponsors, so be sure to check them out in the description below. Thank you so much for supporting us. Coming in hot at number 10 is Charizard Pidgeot. Now, this deck is pretty sweet, and my wife actually played this to a League Cup over the past weekend. Where I think this deck is like super cool is because Charizard EX is absolutely a beast. Where I think this deck struggles is its issues with Path to the Peak and Ability Lock in general. So one thing that I've done in this list is change up the stadium count a little bit, going with Triple Artisan, a Collapse Stadium, and a Lost Vacuum. You may be like, yo Zach, why do you have Lost Vacuum? It's because Mew can actually grab it with its ability, maybe. So you got an opportunity. Another big question I get is Victini EX. Why do I play that? Well, it swings for a solid 220. So grab those out of your shoebox, your bulk bin, or whatever you want to call it. It's pretty good in a deck like this, especially when you could power it up with the Charizard EX as early as turn 2. I think this deck is kind of cool, and it's probably the best Arc deck, even though it's not truly an Arc deck. But it seems like it does okay against Lost Zone Box deck to a certain degree, does well against Mew. Like, I think this deck can hold its own in the metagame. It is a little bit demanding and a little bit more of a wombo combo deck, but once you get set up and if you're able to set up properly, it's cool. I do miss Jacques in this deck, so if I'm looking for that space, not sure if I'm going to find it, but I do think Jacques is quite lit. We'll have to see how it plays out, but right now, I think Charizard is coming in safely at number 10. Fusion Striking at number 9 is Mew VMAX with Meloetta. I think Mew is one of those decks where it's really hard to place because when it's down this low, it might just find its way in the next couple days to itch into the metagame and absolutely tear it up. Mew has been able to overcome everything from Mightyena, Drapion, Path to the Peak, Spiritomb, and now we're on Charizard. There's only so many things that you could do to a person. I mean, sticks and stones may break my bones, but if you run me over with your car repetitively, I'm probably not on this planet no more. Not trying to turn this lovely morning video morbid, but what I'm saying is, Charizard is that truck, and it's going full speed ahead, and whether or not you think people are going to play it, Charizard will be played at your locals, Charizard will be played at regionals, because some people just love the Zard. Zard, unfortunately, being Dark type, is going to put a hindrance on Mew, especially when a lot of the top decks in the metagame do have the opportunity to tech against Mew and can hold positive matchups against Mew as well. That might lead me to bring, is the DTE version better? That's a question that we're going to have. So collectively, I'm also putting the DTE version relatively at this kind of stage as well. If you are a Patreon subscriber, pledger, whatever it is, you have access to all of our lists. We do have solid lists for almost every single major archetype in the formats. I'd argue every single archetype in the format, and then some others. So right now, I think Mew's a little low, but this is where Mew likes to lie because people are like, yeah, we'll cut the Drapion, yeah, we'll cut the Spiritomb, yeah, blah, 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 blah. This is a solid list based off Vance Kelly's Worlds winning list. Mew did just win Worlds, so if you picked up some League Battle decks, if you picked up all the Mew pieces, Mew's a solid play. All the decks on this list are a solid play. Some might be more solid than others, but like anything else, if we're entering a 2,200 overall players, including Masters, Juniors, Seniors, not sure how it all breaks up. I don't think any of us are sure. Mew could be a valid choice, so keep that in mind as you're going in there. And yeah, shameless plug to our Patreon. Check out our Patreon, also in the description. It also is probably the best way to support the Shuffle Squad as well. Splashing into number 8 is Origin Form Palkia V-Star with Chen Pao EX. I think this deck is, it's one of those underrated decks in format where I feel like it holds its own. It's just not spectacular in any category. And I mean, I think that gives you a lot of opportunities to see success. So in my opinion, I think Palkia V-Star, just being able to swing against most V Pokemon as early as turn 2, has an opportunity to kind of topple over games where it's just like, you won the coin flip, turn 2 you're attacking almost every single time. And using Chen Pao EX or Radiant Greninja with your Star Portal V-Star ability to really power stuff up. We saw this deck see success in the GTA and online. Cyrus, also from the Shuffle Squad, played it at Worlds to a 9th place finish. And here we are. Not enough people have really picked up on this deck. And I think anyone who's playing this is in for a pretty good finish at Pittsburgh. Sure, you might want to dodge some Miraidons, but if they don't get off a turn 1 attack, you probably just won anyways. And I think Miraidon doesn't always get off its turn 1 attack. So keep that in mind. I think Palkia is a hot play. And here's Palkia. And before anyone asks, I'm sure I'll still get the questions because some of y'all, I feel like you're watching this video with the audio off. And if you are, that's cool too. Appreciate y'all watching anyways. There's no Chen Pao backs on this list. I think Chen Pao backs is too wombo combo right now in this metagame. And maybe it makes the list 10th in reality, or maybe it goes on to top 16 in the regionals. I think the deck is really high rolly. Very good when it works. But we're in a format where Path really dominates. This deck is not affected by Path as much because you have Melanie, you have just normal attachments. So that's why I'm going with this build. So just keeping it real, trying to explain where everything is. If you need any more help with any of these archetypes, or you're like, yo, you want to know what, that Zach guy seems pretty knowledgeable. I know I saw him on the leaderboards, currently 2nd in North America. If there's anything that you need, hit me up for some coaching on Metafy. And if you're not looking to get coaching from me and you want to get coaching from someone else on Shuffle Squad, almost all of our members coach there, so check out our team page in the description below. Zapping its way all the way into number 7 is Miraidon EX, one of the fastest decks in the format, and we got to give a shout out to Andrew Mahone from Tricky Jim. Their list is what paved the way for this deck. You're going to be ripping through electric generators, powering up your Pokemon, and path judging your opponents. Or path ionoing your opponent, or whatever it is. That being said, I think that this deck is just like a really good like beat 'em up kind of deck, like haymaker punchy kind of deck, where it's like big attacks, quick damage. This is everything that people like about Pokemon put into a deck with a side of ability lock, and I think that's what makes it really good. If you throw this deck into any format in the past, like that doesn't have anything that's like super fighting type, like Buzzwole GX back in time, this is probably one of the best decks. And the fact that this deck's at number 7 just shows like it's like our format's kind of wild right now. This deck's just good. There's no reason not to say that it's good. This is kind of where I feel like the list is just like any deck from here or below are kind of more of the mid choices. And I'm not trying to say that if you play Miraidon or Palkia or whatever, those are mid. I think that those are decks that might not win the tournament kind of plays. I think that those are decks that you might get CP with. I think those are decks that you'll have a lot of fun with, pet decks. That's kind of where the lower end of the list is. These are all great choices if it's your first regionals, if it's the deck that you've been playing at locals, it's all great choices. My gut feeling tells me that anything that's like 7, 8, 9, 10 is not winning the regionals, at least in the Masters division. I mean, for juniors and seniors, I think the metagames can be wildly different. But these decks, I mean, Miraidon's aggressive enough where maybe you can make it happen. We'll have to see how it plays out. That's my humble opinion, but remember when you're going to Pokemon Regionals that it's not all about winning. It's not all about choosing the best deck. But if you are trying to play on a competitive aspect, any of the decks in this video are fantastic choices. I just think that the 7, 8, 9, 10 are probably a little bit under the competitive belt compared to the rest. Not by much, and again, matchups can really change things up, but that's we'll see how it plays out. We'll maybe do a video to see how right and how wrong I was next week. Flying high at number 6 is Lugia Single Strike. Now, this is a deck that I might have put too low on this list, because as the metagame opens up, I feel like this deck just seems to have good matchups against a lot of the top decks. It's really hard because this deck hasn't necessarily proven itself in a hot minute, but I think I've seen a few League Cup, League Challenge results over the past week that's allowed this deck to kind of creep into the upper half of the metagame. I know we're still under that number 5, but I mean, we'll see how it plays out. You'll see it's really hard when you see the decks that are there and you're like, yeah, it makes sense. Lugia has a good matchup against Lost Zone Box. Lugia can hold its own against Gardevoir and Mew, and even Cobalion allows you to have an out versus Charizard. And the deck is super simple to play, and you just power up energies. This is kind of like if Miraidon was colorless type, but just with a slightly better matchup spread. And I mean, this is a deck that you probably don't want to see. You don't want to sit across from Miraidon if you're playing this deck. So that just shows that it can be a little rock, paper, scissors. But I think this deck does Miraidon things a little bit better. It just doesn't have Path Lock. And that might just be the kicker there. But regardless, I think Lugia is very well positioned this weekend. So if you're a Lugia main, I think Lugia is going to see some success going forward. And we'll have to see how things try to counter it. I mean, when Lugia starts doing well, the Duraludon gang takes you outside and says you can't play special energies. So I'll have to see how it plays out, but right now Lugia is a solid pick at number 6. Jumping into our number 5 pick, Gale thrusting into it, is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX with Inteleon VMAX. Now, this is a deck that has seen a lot of success. I mean, Cyrus won NAIC with it. Alex Szymanski made top 16 at Worlds with it. I think Rapid Strike Urshifu is really the top player's deck of choice. If they're not Lost Zone bots like I am, you're a Rapid Strike main for the most part. And if not, then you're Gardevoir. Those are really the 3, like, you are very good at Pokemon, you know what you're doing with your decks, and even if you don't, those are the decks that everyone thinks you know what you're doing with all of these decks. I played Rapid Strike to a cup when 0-2 dropped, so if you ask me, I'm not the biggest fan of this deck, but I do understand that there is variance, and the deck is probably very good in best of 3. Really looking at a streamlined version of the list here, and I think Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX just being able to kind of spread its way with Gmax Rapid Flow, having that Metacham, like, you're placing a lot of damage counters around on your opponent's Pokemon with Inteleon, moving them around with Radiant Alakazam. If this deck's able to set up, and a lot of the times it is, this deck just has solid matchups against a lot of the top decks. Does it have a solid matchup against Lugia? No. Does it have a solid matchup against Mew? No, not really, unless you go with the Giacomo Spiritomb strategy. But right now, I think that Rapid Strike Urshifu is definitely one of the top decks. However, we are at number 5, so we'll have to see what we have for our top 4 decks coming up real soon. Again, I do want to let everyone know that in the pinned comment, we do have all of the lists along with video references for a lot of these decks as well. So be sure to check those out. If there's not a video reference by me, be sure to check out the rest of the videos from the Shuffle Squad, seeing if there's any content from LDF, PJ, or any of our other members. At number 4 this week, we have Turbo Lost Zone Box. Last week I split up. I put Turbo, Lost Zone Box, and Kyogre in the same category. I did not this week. So whether that's me foreshadowing or Kyogre didn't make the list, we'll find out. I think that this deck is... I don't want to be like it's different enough, but they've seen separate amounts of success that I don't want to just group them in anymore. It's really like 2 decks, and I think that it's just would be unfair. It's the same... whatever. It's my list. I'm going to put Turbo and Kyogre differently. I have a copy of each built in real life. So, I mean, it's not like I'm just swapping out the cards in between. And that was really my deciding factor. I've seen a lot of lists cutting Raikou right now. That's what allowed Lugia to jump back into the format. Not that it makes the matchup that much better, But it does make it tolerable, and I mean, Raikou's also good against the Inteleon VMAX aspect of Rapid Strike Urshifu, and overall, this deck is just turbo. We're going to be ripping through our Forest Steel Stones, using it, grabbing Colress, playing Lost Vacuum, ripping that Forest Steel Stone into the Lost Zone, getting a 7, and I mean, ripping for a Dragonite, a Raikou, a Radiant Greninja. As early as turn 1, turn 2 Sableye is not uncommon, and then you are absolutely chilling. This deck is trying to outspeed decks like Lost Tina and other top decks into the metagame, and really not giving them an opportunity to exist. So I think this is why Turbo's on this list. I think Turbo's a solid deck. I was able to win a league challenge, I think, with Turbo. Something similar to that. I think I won with Turbo, or I was with Kyogre or something like that. It's getting kind of blurry because I've been playing in a lot of events lately, but I've seen success with this deck. I think a lot of players have as well, so I definitely look into it. This is probably like just a solid standalone build. I did cut a Echoing Horn right before this video for the 3rd Forest Steel Stone. Not sure where I want to add it back in. Maybe it's that Artisan. We'll have to see how it plays out. Okay, I was cooking, and Kyogre splashes into number 3. You can see that it's a very similar build. It has the Dragonite, it has the Raikou, and basically cuts the Drapion for Kyogre. A few of the consistency cards and extra stadiums go into being extra energies for this deck for the Kyogre Aqua Storm win con. I mean, it's damage, but Aqua Storm plays out as it's like your opponent doesn't have Manaphy, you rip the top 5 cards of your deck. I think that this deck, it's slightly worse than Turbo Lost Zone Box when you're playing against Lost Zone Box. It's also slightly easier to play in Lost Zone Box Mirror because you have more resources that you can get rid of. Blind Greninjas, you don't need to prize check nearly as much. And you can kind of rip your opponent to shreds as well. It's almost no different than playing Turbo at that stage. However, you can see that you have less Lost Vacuum, you have less stadiums, you have less Pokemon tools. But you do make up for that with your bag of tricks with Kyogre and Echoing Horn and stuff like that. If you go second in Lost Zone Mirror, your opponent might not even know that you're playing Kyogre at first. And you might just be able to go Cramorant, turn 2, Sableye, and then you're chilling. Where this deck really sees its strength and why I think it's better is against Gardevoir and Tina and Lugia and Mew and Miraidon. And those are just to name a few. I'm sure I could find more reasons that are non-purist Lost Zone Box decks. So basically all Lost Zone Box decks, except Tina, you're not really going to use Kyogre. They have Manaphy. And Sableye is a lot easier. They don't have big Pokemon on their bench. So single prize card decks, yeah, Kyogre kind of sucks against. And you can use Radiant Greninja, and it's usually cheaper. And it's not discarding the top 5 cards of your deck planning towards a win con. Against Pokemon that have big Pokemon, Gardevoir, having Zacian, Gardevoir, Tina having Tinas in play, Miraidon's having Miraidon, Raichu, whatever in play, Lugia having all of the Lugia V-Star or Lumineon in play. You can basically Aqua Storm and just win the game. And if they don't get around to it, like you can Pal Pad back in Chloris, they might not even be able to Roxanne around. That's why this deck is better than Turbo right now in our current metagame. So we're not 100% a Lost Zone Box meta, which is the reason why Kyogre is good. The more Lost Zone Box in your meta, it's better to go more Turbo. And they're very similar, so just want to kind of explain that. But I think Kyogre is going to see a lot of success, and I think a lot of the top players are going to be leaning towards this build over Turbo. Hopping in to our number 2 pick with that Psychic Embrace goodness is Gardevoir EX. Now, Gardevoir EX, this is a kind of new build compared to towards second place World's Finish. And I mean, having access to Sky Seal Stone, Forest Seal Stone, Town Store does give you a lot of opportunities to maybe have a slightly better Lugia matchup, a slightly better Mew matchup, a slightly better Tina matchup. Sky Seal Stone is the sauce, y'all. And I hope y'all see a video before, especially if you're Gardevoir players. The reason why we play Town Store is because we could have our choice of having Sky Seal Stone or Forest Seal Stone and a path out. So it's really why it can be very good. Otherwise, this build is relatively standard when it comes down to it. And I think having the worker, we're in a very path-based format. A lot of decks are playing path. And there's decks outside of the top 10 that are almost top 10, like Arc, Tina. Sorry, it's not number 1. Sorry if I broke anyone's heart there. That play path, so keep that in mind. I think Gardevoir is a solid deck. The one thing that holds this deck back from being number 1 is its issues with time. A lot of the games go long with this one, so if you win game 1, you might just be able to 1-0 your opponents, and Tord has seen a lot of those 1-0 victories when it comes down to it. If you lose a long game 1, you're basically playing for a tie to try to win game 2, because a lot of the times you're not completing game 3. So if you are playing Gardevoir, you have to really know this deck inside out, when to properly scoop game 1 or game 2 if you don't see a win con very early. However, a lot of this deck is Iono late game. We'll get out of it with refinement. It will all be okay. So it's really hard to determine if you're able to win a game early or not. So I see a lot of players playing Gardevoir, and they are just tying their games because they are not able to complete the series. And that's something that's really tough to deal with when it comes to a best of 3 large regionals like Pittsburgh. So keep that in mind. However, Gardevoir is a fantastic deck, and if you do know what you're doing with Gardevoir, I'm sure you're able to scoop games earlier strategically, so you're not necessarily falling into those ties. Otherwise, Gardevoir might be a bit of a rough go. So if you're newer to Pittsburgh, you haven't really played best of 3, I wouldn't recommend Gardevoir. If you're a player on top of your game, and I appreciate y'all watching the Shuffle Squad for all the best information about Pokemon, Gardevoir is a sick deck. Definitely try against this one, because I know a lot of top players do decide to go with Gardevoir. Tord, arguably the best player of all time, plays Gardevoir. Pretty much everything. Keep that in mind. And here we have it, the best deck of all, Lost Tina. Now, you might be like, Lost Tina is an absolute brick fest. Lost Tina sucks. Lost Tina, I went 3-2 at my League Cup. Those things could all be true, and it could also be the best deck in format. I think a lot of players do not know how to play this deck. And I'm not trying to say that I know how to play this deck better than y'all, but I think the proof is there in the pudding when it comes down to it, that this is a non-linear deck. Sure, your first turn, you might be trying to get Comfey, Colress, Cramorant, attack your opponent. From turn 2, or if that does not work out, do you send Comfey up? Do you Radiant Greninja? Did you sequence everything properly? Do you know every single card available in your deck by searching through your prize card, or searching through your deck to identify your prize cards? Are you able to Abyss Seeking? There's a lot of cool things that you could do with this deck, such as Abyss Seeking, such as a late game Roxanne Path Sableye play, such as playing around Roxanne yourself, that I think that this deck is very difficult to play correctly, even for myself. I'm consistently learning when it comes to playing this deck, and it might come down to, you might not be playing the best build of Tina. The deck is much better without Waters. If you get off Greninja all the time, you're probably winning the regionals. If you're like most other people, and that's just a pipe dream, 100% just cut the Waters from this deck. This is a build that me and my other Shuffle Squad testing partner, teammate, friend, Tyler Zakoris have been playing. And we've kind of been molding this build up since, I don't know, mid-July, early July. Currently, I'm rank 2nd North America with this deck, almost exclusively. Tyler is within the top 10, might have been top 16 after the update over the past couple days. We've really like kind of put this deck to the limits. And the thing about Tina is you just don't lose to everything, or you don't really lose to anything. Most matchups are really close. You're not really walking away with any freebie wins. You're gonna have to fight tooth and nail, but this is the most successful deck online. It's the most successful deck in real life, and I think a lot of the same players are seeing success with it. So if you're on the side of not seeing success with Tina, I'd argue that it's probably not the best deck for you. The best deck is not always the best deck for every single person. There's a lot of other great decks on this list. And even myself, I wonder if Tina's too difficult to play, if Tina is too fragile at times. But there's a lot of cool things in here that really push the limits of this deck. So give it a try. And I'm not trying to be like, yo, don't play Tina, I'm better than you, or anything else like that. Don't get, like, those are not where I'm trying to convey the thoughts here. 100% Tina is a solid deck at the regionals. Think about how you could play it different. Watch them stream games. I mean, Michael Pramois just came top 4 at Worlds. They were on stream. Learn a little things here and there against Tina, and really see how it plays out in the metagame. If not, see what other decks are seeing success. But right now, I have to say Tina is the best deck in format. heading into there. Doesn't really lose to anything, doesn't really hold a super negative matchup against anything, even if it does. Tina is just the best deck going into a large field right now. And there you have it. It's very heavy on the Lost Zone box decks at the top, but that's really what's been showing through our League Cups, League Challenges, online events, and there's a splash of Gardevoir here and there, and I mean, we'll see how it goes. My gut feeling tells me is that Lugia might be a little bit more of a stronger play, especially as top players tend to play Gardevoir, Lost Zone box decks, and Rapid Strike decks. Does pretty well against that metagame, if you ask me. There might be a couple other decks that do pop up into this list. I think something like Arctina could do well. I think Chen Pao has an opportunity to do well, but maybe not the best. That being said, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. And if you haven't already got a chance to subscribe to the Shuffle Squad, double check to make sure you're subscribed there. If you're already subscribed, let us know in the comments. Yo, I love the Shuffle Squad. I love your videos, Zach. Whatever you want to say, just say hi. I'm first in the video. Whatever you want to say. It does boost the YouTube algorithm. And give this video that thumbs up too. I'm going to be at Pittsburgh Regionals along with most of the other Shuffle Squad members. So be sure to come up and say hi. We're going to be in our purple jerseys. And we'll catch up with all y'all soon. Peace out and have a great one. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching this entire video from the Shuffle Squad. Honestly, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate each and every person that supports our content, watches what we have going on every single day, every single week, even from time to time, and continuously allows us to have a forum to project our creative content towards the Pokemon TCG community. So if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment to help boost the YouTube algorithm. That being said, we'll catch you with our next video. Thanks again. Take it easy.